So welcome back, everyone. Very nice lunch and a lot of great discussion out there. I also had a chance to look at all the brochures each group came up with. I was very impressed with the graphical creativity from every group but mine. We were the industrial group. We wrote a lot of words and didn't get too graphic in the whole thing, but and I think maybe later on we'll have some time. I did go through them and saw a few common themes and some unique things, and so hopefully we'll have some time later to talk about that. But right now we're going to get into our next segment. We're going to get perspectives, 4 different perspectives from different sort of players in local travel plan networks. I'm going to kick it off with Friso Metz from the Netherlands.
Thank you very much. Well, the political aspect is not really my specialty, so it's kind of a challenge to share my experiences with you, and I think together we can do a lot. So if the right PowerPoint is here, I can. It's this one. Oh, I'm pressing the wrong button. Thank you. So I'm want to give you a short introduction, then share some experiences and lessons with you, and finally come up with some kind of synthesis. And I use some cartoons which we used in Dutch network meetings on mobility management. So let's say convincing politicians about mobility management always feels a bit difficult, and like they don't want, because they like to do everything with car traffic but not with reducing it. So how could you get them involved, how to create support, and how to convince them? I'll try to get some clues on that right now. Well, to start with the experiences and some cases, let's start in a beautiful city in Holland called Groningen. I think many of you know it because of their cycling policies. Over 50% of all trips in the city are done by bike. But the picture I got last week from a person who was working for the city of Groningen, it's the left one. It was in the 60s. I don't know if you can see it really clear, but this is the central market square. And in the 60s they converted in a large roundabout, the 3-lane roundabout in the heart of the city center. And the market, which was always there, they moved it to somewhere in a bad place, and the place wasn't nice anymore, and it was stuck by car traffic. And then in the 70s they decided to cut all through traffic through the city center, and they were the first one in Holland. It was quite a radical policy, and I think for many of us it would be the dream that politicians make strong decisions like this, cutting the car traffic and getting the car out of the city, because it would result in nice squares, nice sites with walking and pedestrians and bikes, and they even used some public space to develop a new shopping area. And in fact, they started in the 70s with these policies, and they are still improving it. And the right-hand slide shows the future, which is going to be very nearby, because they want to reintroduce the tram line. And some years ago, I spoke with an alderman of the city. He was a liberal, and he was promoting cycle use as a liberal, because he wouldn't imagine how his city would be overwhelmed with cars if all those people cycling right now would convert to car again. So he was really favoring cycle use as a way to get the city accessible by those who need a car. Well, let's go to Budapest in Hungary. I understood some years ago that they didn't have this radical politicians, but they managed something which was as interesting as in Groningen, I think, because this bridge is the Margaret Bridge. It's that bridge linking two sides of the city with a leisure island in the Danube River. And because road capacity is small on the bridge, they didn't want to offer it for cycling, but there are many people who like to cycle to the island for leisure activities in the weekends. And then they decided for in the weekends there's not so much car traffic, so only in the weekends there was a temporary bicycle lane on this bridge. Only in the weekends in summer periods with not so much car traffic. And the result was that many people used this temporary lane to cycle to the island, and everyone could see that this measure resulted in a large response. So at a time when politicians were only thinking about cars, they could see that even such a simple measure which didn't harm anyone had such a large result. And I don't know what the effects on the long term of it. I didn't hear about it anymore, but I'm very interested in it, because you could say it's just a minor start of mobility management, but there were results which were visible. And that was the same as in Munich. In Munich they started to inform new residents about all travel options in the city, and they made some good monitoring of this project. And there were some large congestion problems in Munich. It's a city with car industry, so many cars, and but they realized they had to do something different than only promote car use. So they started with this action, and the politicians, they said, well, if this action is successful, we will continue it. And then they used this monitoring of the project to convince everyone about the results, because often in mobility management the results are not really that much visible like in Budapest. You could say, well, we reached so many people and people were happy with the offer, but what were the effects? And with good monitoring they made it clear that this project was really necessary and it was really benefiting. And in times of budget cuts in Munich, they got green light to continue with this project. Well, the sun is not always shining, so let's get back to Amsterdam. The left lane was a carpool lane. So it was started like it's you only could be there if there were 3 or more people in this in a car. It was in the 90s of last century. It was an experiment, but the legislation was not covered completely. And there was a politician who was opposing against the Minister of Transport who decided about this. And he knew about this legislation leak. And then he started driving on this carpool lane in his own without other people in his car until he was fined. And then he started a trial, and then the judge he said, well, this is not okay, so you are right, you can drive there in your own on this carpool lane. And it was very pity, because the effect was that at the Transport Ministry no one dared to talk about carpooling anymore. And well, they could have said, well, let's make good regulations for this, and then it's okay. But it was the end of the project, and I think this is 20 years ago. And don't talk about HOV lanes in Holland nowadays, because you'll lose your job. So you cannot influence anything. That's what I want to say. There could be some political games, and well, just stay out of it. A more positive approach was during roadworks in the Netherlands. There's much congestion, and there are many roadworks going on in Holland which reduced road capacity, and our Minister of Transport, he didn't want to have more hindrance by all the roadworks. So there were good results with projects focusing on public transport passes during roadworks, asking people temporarily to change their travel mode or not to travel during peak hours. And these experiments were quite successful, and there was a high urgency. So this Minister of Transport made it obligatory for the National Road Agency to work on mobility management during large roadworks. It is highly successful, and the interesting part is that the roadworks are all through the country, and in many regions it was the start of really mobility management in these regions. And one of these regions is Maastricht in the upper south of the country. And there was another aspect in Maastricht. There were many regions. They made agreements or covenants on regional level, and Maastricht didn't have it, but they could get money if they made such an agreement. So they said, we also want such an agreement, because then we got money for our project. And they had also an urgent roadworks project, and they started to bind together all parties from government. These are all the parties in the picture. Down under it's the government, on the right-hand side the employers. On the upper part it's the mobility companies like public transportation, etc. And in the middle of the triangle it's the travelers. And here are all the organizations who signed this agreement. So they are going to implement a local travel plan network. And one of these persons you might know, he's standing before the left pillar. It's André Rieu. You could know him from his music, and he is from this city. And they said, we need you for this support. And they're really doing good things in Maastricht nowadays. So it was quite a hell of a job to get all these people together, but they managed because they had a perspective on, if we do it together, we'll get results, and we can get the city up and running for the next 10 years, because there are really large transport problems coming up with the roadworks.